Welcome to another episode of the Braun Performance and Rehab Podcast, powered by ISOFIT and Oro Muscles. ISOFIT is my go-to for all things isometric strength training, and Oro Muscles is an actionable muscle wearable that I use to get a deeper insight as to how my athletes that I work with are using their muscles to complete movements and exercises and so on that way. Highly recommend you check out both if you haven't already. Today, I'm joined by Ashley Petrosine, and we're going to dive into her journey in sport. She has a very unique background as she combines skydiving, skiing, college lacrosse, and soon Hyrox and other high-intensity interval type of events that way, all into her athletic journey that way. So this is a great conversation about someone who really has a unique blend of sports, and I know you're going to love it. Enjoy. Ashley, welcome to the podcast. I'm super excited to work with you today, and I really appreciate your time. But for people who maybe don't know your backstory as well as I do, or they don't know all the incredible things that you do, whether it be in the lacrosse space or skiing or skydiving or all the other amazing things that you do, would you mind filling them in a little bit about who you are and all the great things that you have going on?
Yeah, sure. So I'm so excited. I was thrilled when you reached out to me because I had never done anything like this before. And this is actually perfect because I had just recently started posting more to social media and kind of just everything that I do to kind of inspire people or get people inspired to want to do maybe something similar or find their own kind of niche or thing that they want to do. So I'm currently 22 years old. I attend Montclair State University. I'm in my last semester, so I'll be graduating in May, and I play college lacrosse as well as other sports such as skiing and skydiving. Those are both done outside of Montclair. Those are things that I both picked up a little bit before college. And then I also just got into high intensity interval training, I would say about 2 years ago. So that's something that's very up and coming now, especially when people transition out of college sports and they're trying to find something to do afterwards. It just seems to be a very popular thing now. They call them hybrid athletes, which combines the high intensity interval training with running and strength training as well. So I do a little bit of that too.
Yeah, that's an incredible blend of just so many different athletic disciplines. And to your point about the term hybrid athlete, I think you've already accomplished that in being someone who plays lacrosse and skis and skydives. I don't think I've ever met someone who does all three of those together that way. I really want to hear more about the skydiving first because when you
Yeah.
say skydiving as a sport, most people they hear skydiving and they're like, "Oh yeah, I go like once a year or every now and then." But you mean it very, very different than that, I know, don't you?
Yeah, so it is considered a sport. There are teams of women, teams of men that compete in different areas around the world in different, I would say, categories within skydiving. So you can do formations in the sky. That's something that people compete in, as well as canopy courses. So a canopy is the same thing as a parachute. That's what we use when we're ready to deploy and we've reached our altitude where we're ready to pull, and the parachute or canopy, whatever you want to call it, will deploy. People compete with the dynamic of that as well. They call it swooping. Essentially, you're kind of spiraling down from the sky at a very high speed, and people that is what people compete and do. I personally do not do that. There is a very high risk with it, and it does take a lot of time and training to learn and get into. But I love watching other people do it. It's very fascinating. And I'm just there to take videos and pictures of them. So, but yeah, that it is technically considered a sport.
I love that. How exactly did you find your way into skydiving as a sport that way? I mean, did you just kind of fall into it, pun intended, or did you, how did we get here?
I would say 10 or 11 when I was in my hometown. And you know those kiosks you see at the mall? The place that I now jump out of had a kiosk, and they were kind of promoting the airport. And my mom and I still have the pamphlet to this day. It's different owners now, but we took one and I was like, Mom, I want to do that as soon as I'm of age. I never had any fear really of heights or anything like that. I always loved roller coasters, climbing trees when I was a kid. I had finally turned 18, and my best friend, who's a little bit older than me, she had already gone previously 2 times to this place. The airport is out of Sussex County. It's called Skydive Sussex. So we booked a date in August, right before I started my freshman year of college. And funny enough, it was kind of dicey, the weather that day. So they had ended up putting us on what they call a wind hold. They kind of wait till the wind dies down a little bit so it's not dangerous for the people that are going up in the plane. And I was like, yes, like now I don't have to go up. And I was super excited. And I would say 30 minutes later, they call us, they call both of our names and they're like, you guys are ready to go. And I'm like, oh, great. So we're getting ready. We go up. I would say it takes about 30 minutes total from the ground to the time that you reach altitude, which is about 15,000 feet. That's the height that you're jumping out of the plane at. And I have never been so scared in my entire life. I still look at the picture to this day. It's hysterical. There's just fear all over my face. So much fear. I honestly probably started crying. I can't even really remember because it was a blur at that time. But then once you're falling, you reach a specific mileage and you're just kind of, it's just very freeing. After coming down to the ground, I was like, wow, I want to do it again. I need to come back and I need to do it again. So I did 2 months later. And that was when I decided I wanted to continue doing it and go for my licensing. And the tandems are great. If you don't know what a tandem is, it's when you're attached to the instructor. That's what they call a tandem. So the tandems actually count towards your licensing, which is awesome. So I decided to get it the following summer, and I have been licensed ever since 2022.
That's absolutely incredible. And just hats off to you because I don't know what it is, but the whole skydiving thing just hasn't been for me yet. Maybe
That's
I'll
okay.
eventually warm up to it, but I haven't found my way into that yet. Now you mentioned a lot of different things so far. You mentioned about just the competitive element and the formations and different things that you're able to kind of do within the competitive skydiving realm. You mentioned about how you got interested in skydiving and how this kind of came about. It's so funny to me how you don't realize those little experiences you have when you're young can really shape things later on in life for you that way. And you also mentioned about the licensure, and I would love to hear more about that whole licensing process. Like, how do you become a skydiving instructor, and how do you kind of become someone who just kind of like doesn't need to like just rely on a tandem to go jump that way?
Yeah, so I reached out to Skydive Sussex and I had asked them what I had to do to obtain my licensing. And they said, we have a course, it's about 8 hours long. It's a single day, so you have to go in person, take the course. They show you literally everything in that day, everything you can imagine from your equipment, the different levels that you're going to be going through as a student, packing your parachute. That I did a little bit of continuation on afterwards, just because it's so extensive. But they, even things that can go wrong, they want to expose you to that because, yes, it is fearful, but if you're prepared, then there's no reason to be scared of what could happen. I've never told my parents this, but I've been in a little mishap before.
Oh,
So
this is where it gets really good. Like, hold on, I need to get like my cup of tea here or something like that.
yeah, I've been in my own mishap before. Nobody else's fault. It's but I'm here. I handled it well because they properly equipped me to handle that situation. But yeah, so they'll take you through that 8 hour ground course, and then at the end of that, you'll take what they like to call an exam. You have to pass that. Great. I passed it. now I'm technically officially on student status. So I had my 3 tandems finished because I had went again after October. So I did twice in 2021 and then I did another tandem in 2022.
You were really hooked on this, weren't you?
I was. And I wanted to go with as many people as I could. I'm like, you have to try this, trying to push everybody, get them to do it also. I still do that now. So I'm officially on student status, completed 3 jumps, which leaves me with 22 left. So as soon as you finish those tandems, you're now on that status. You're on your own. You're officially no longer attached to anybody. They send you up with your own equipment. You have a walkie-talkie. You have an altimeter, which reads the altitude. And then you have your parachute and your canopy, which is called a rig, which also has a backup canopy in it in case anything does happen. So they send you up and you start off on your levels. So there are 7 different levels. They call them dive flows that you have to follow. So you'll go up and you'll do it with a coach or somebody that is licensed in that specific area to work with students. So I believe I did that, yeah, for the first 7 times. They just watch you, make sure you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing. You start off very, very basic, and then you kind of pick up new skills along the way. After those 7, there's a checklist that you have to follow. So each thing that you do gets checked off, and then that's how you obtain that license. So a student status, a student coming off of a student status would be an A license. So that's like the most basic license. So once you hit all 25 jumps and everything else that you're supposed to complete in between, then somebody will sign off, say, okay, they've done this. And then you just pay a small fee to the USPA, the United States Parachute Association. And then you're officially a licensed skydiver.
That's incredible. So you are, I've seen people like promoting this online that they're like forklift certified, whatever that means, but you are skydiving certified in your case, which I
Yeah.
think is way cooler personally. I think that's absolutely incredible that way. And it's so interesting because that's probably the biggest thing or biggest fear I have personally about skydiving is like that hypothetical, what if something goes wrong? But it sounds like, at least in your case, like that fear never holds you back, or if it does, you just know that you're so well prepared for it that you can handle it.
Yes, and people have the same fear also, but I always tell them that these people that you're jumping with have tens and thousands of skydives and they're still here. So you have nothing to worry about. They are specifically trained for specific situations. Listen, I'm not gonna beat around the bush. There have been times where there have been tandems that have had to use backups, and but that's okay. And it's very, very rare. I've only seen it once in my entire career of skydiving. So that's, I would say, 4 years now. I've seen it once out of the thousands of skydives that everybody does.
I,
Oh, it
I, I like those odds. I like those ratios.
yeah, that's very slim to none. And I would never want to put somebody else in danger if I, didn't think something was safe. So,
No, 100%. Now, I guess I got to ask the obvious question. You mentioned skiing as well. Have you ever kind of combined the skydiving and the skiing? Have you jumped out of a plane and then just like started skiing down like a mountain from there or
I've
anything
seen
yet?
people, I've actually seen people do that before. I haven't. That'd be pretty cool, but
That's a new bucket list
it's
item.
probably a little expensive because you got to find an area to do that. You might need a helicopter or something
Well,
like that.
we have podcast sponsors. I mean, we can arrange this, I think.
Call up Red Bull, maybe. I'm good with anything. I'll do whatever.
I love that. I love that. How did you get into the skiing? I mean, it certainly seems like you have this pull towards what people consider to be like the extreme sports, right? Skydiving, skiing, that sort of thing. Like, I think a lot of these things are not for the faint of heart that way. So, did this kind of come naturally from the skydiving? Was this prior to the skydiving, or where does this fit into the puzzle?
So the skiing was actually before, and this is where my entire college lacrosse career came from. So the skiing came in, I was a senior in high school, so I was 17. That was in 2021. I tried it December of 2020. Loved it, but hated it at the same time because I wasn't good at it yet. So we had a love-hate relationship, skiing and I. And then I went back at some point in February. I'm not sure if Mountain Creek is like a thing by you. I don't know if that's just a Jersey thing. I'm pretty sure it is. Um, but it's just your basic like ski resort. They in the summer it's a water park, and then in the winter it's a ski resort. I went and I was with my best friend who also skis. She also skydives now. So we kind of go hand in hand with each other. We feed off of each other's, I guess, energy, you could say,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, the vibes are just immaculate there. We love
we're
that.
we're like the same person. So she had been skiing since she was little, and she kind of initially introduced me to it because I had been wanting to try it. No one in my family did it. So clearly I like to do things that are new territory. So we went, and at the time I was with somebody. We are no longer together, but he was also there that day. And I was like, oh, like that'd be great. Like that'd be so cool if we could like meet up. And we did. And it was not how I had planned. Crazy enough, this is actually all on video. My best friend and I were getting ready to go down just like a basic green hill. And my boyfriend at the time, his cousin was, everybody was there. There's a bunch of people, which probably wasn't good for me being a new skier. He was out of the corner of my eye, kind of coming in really, really quick. And I was like, okay, so I'm either going to have to bail out or he's going to hit me. So I bailed and I swung my leg underneath of my body and I ended up tearing my ACL fully, completely ripped, snapped, all that good stuff. I couldn't get up. I couldn't move. I was like, something's wrong. I ended up skiing for another 2 hours after that. I think because I was so high on adrenaline or just something that I didn't feel it, but I also kind of wanted to prove something to myself. I'm like, this is nothing. I can continue skiing. It's fine. It's okay. Everything's great. It wasn't. As soon as we were done and got off the hill, my knee kind of just locked up and it wouldn't really bend. So I was struggling to walk back to the car a little bit. Had to prop up my leg on the dash, and I called my mom and I was like, yeah, I really think there's something wrong. So I went to an urgent care the next day. They did an x-ray, didn't find anything in the x-ray because it's bone. The bone was actually fine. And then I also got an MRI, which confirmed that it was a torn ACL. But nothing else. Meniscus was fine. PCL was fine. Everything surrounding it was in great condition. So I feel very blessed and lucky that that was the only bad thing that had happened. Now, this was also right in the middle of my last high school lacrosse season. So if I remember correctly, high school lacrosse starts in March. So I had a choice to make. I could either skip out on my season, get surgery, and miss my, at the time, last ever career of playing lacrosse, or I could rehab and play with no ACL. So, given I took that option.
I
Um,
freaking love that you did that, by the way.
Again, it like everything ties into each other with the risk factor. It's I always say, like take the risk or lose the chance. So I took the risk. The orthopedic surgeon that I had at the time, she's fabulous. I would go to her for anything now. She gave me a carbon fiber brace that was very bulky on my leg, but did everything it needed to do. And I played almost my entire season of high school and ultimately decided that I didn't have enough time and that I wanted to keep playing because I was so adamant for so long about oh, I'm never going to play college lacrosse. I don't want to do it. Well, look what happened now. We're here playing college lacrosse. And it was honestly a blessing in disguise. As much as I would never want anybody else to go through what I did injury wise, just because it's so taxing mentally and physically, it propelled me in a different direction that I never saw coming. And I am so forever grateful for that. Because injuries teach you lessons that you can't learn unless it's happened to you. It's so hard to relate to somebody else without knowing what's actually going on. So yeah, I almost finished my season, got the surgery, and during that time I had been in contact with my lacrosse coach now, Nicole Parsaluzzi, who is the head coach for Montclair State University, and we decided that I was gonna join the team. So I think I found out around April or Mayish that I was going to be playing college lacrosse, and now we are here,
And we have
almost
so
done.
much to unpack from that story, and even on the college lacrosse side, because I mean, there's a lot to get into with that as well. But just to kind of run it back, I mean, first off, it's interesting that you say, hey, my first time skiing did not go like I thought it would. I find a lot of times people, for whatever reason, struggle to learn the sport at first. I'm very, very fortunate and thankful that my dad put me on skis before I knew how to run. And I was
Mhm.
just this tiny little guy going down the mountain. Like, I'm sure it was a sight to see, and I'm sure I probably drove him nuts. But I definitely think that, having seen other people learn to ski later on in life, starting early definitely helps. I will say that I feel so, so bad that your first time out that you ended up injuring your knee that way. It's a really unfortunate situation. Unfortunately, you and the boy are no longer together, but at least your knee is reconnected and the ligament is good now. So shout out to that. And it's so interesting to hear you say that you're thankful that it happened and it's a blessing in disguise and just the impact that an injury had on you. And I hear this from so many people about how it changes their perspectives or it gives them a new way of looking at things, or they basically go through this transformative year-long process of doing minimal to no activity, right? Like you're not walking after surgery, like the day after surgery, like you literally have to rebuild everything from the ground up. And there's something about going from literally relearning how to walk or relearning just how to freaking fire your quad muscle again, all the way up to the point of where you're going back to unrestricted sport. And I think that to your point, the lessons that you learn from that can be just intangible, the effect that they can have later on in life that way. And I think that that message is not preached enough, that regardless of what you're going through or whatever your injury status is or whatever it is that way, plain and simple, there is a silver lining to the whole thing, and you will get to the other side and you will, overcome, whatever obstacles currently in your path. But I'm sure that you had to grind tooth and nail and work ridiculously hard to get to that point.
Yeah, it was very scary, especially going back into I was still injured when I started playing college lacrosse. So I took the brace with me. I didn't know what to expect. It's a very different intensity level, but it ended up all working out. I was able to play a little bit my freshman year, just because I wasn't sure how the everything was going to go about with the injury, especially because I was a little bit behind on my injury. There was a point where my knee would not extend out anymore that it was supposed to, so it was kind of locked in like a fixed bent position. So we had to do a lot of painful things to almost unlock it, but it's I would say I'm at 110% now. I haven't had any issues.
I love that. That's ultimately what we want for everyone, right? We want issue free.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of, rehabs going wrong that way. And I think to your point that you made earlier, just making sure you surround yourself with the right people and good people that way can make all the difference in the world that way. You get to pick who your surgeon is, you get to pick who you rehab with, you get to select all of these things.
Yes.
So please feel free to go out there and interview people and make sure that they've earned the right to work with you. Because if they haven't earned the right to work with you, don't waste your time there, please. And that goes for my own practice too, right? Like, I invite anyone, it's a very open door policy. Stop in, see what it is I do. If you have questions, ask. I'll do my best to answer them. If I don't know, I'm gonna, work until I get you an answer, right? Like, there's certain things that need to be the standard in this space. So please make sure if you're an athlete who's injured, do not sell yourself short and do not settle for, whatever you feel is good enough somewhere. If you
Right.
think it could be better, like go find the better thing.
Right, exactly. And also, I was very lucky that my mom knew the best doctors. Her situation is very unfortunate. She's been through extensive surgeries for her back, her hips, her knees, her neck. So she's not in the best condition, but she is probably the most like one of the most hardworking, loving, caring people I know. So she was able to provide me with all the tools and information I needed because she had already gone through what I had gone through. So I was very fortunate that I was able to get one of the best orthopedic surgeons and find physical therapists that were willing to push me and want to spend time with me and make sure that I was going to be ready for whatever came at me next.
Yeah,
So,
no, I love that. And I mean, it sounds like a very unfortunate situation with everything that's happened to your mom that way. But I also think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but having that support system helped you get the outcome that you got from this, right? And it's like one of those things where had you not had that level of support and that level of knowledge going in,
yeah, and she also understands, whereas my dad might not understand as much what's going on because he hasn't been through something as extensive as that. Yes, he's had, a little knee surgery, but nothing to the extent of my mom, or a torn ligament like that. So it's nice to have somebody that understands what's going on. And now I can even understand her position more.
yeah, 100%. And now, even on the skiing side, like you're back to normal and we're skiing whatever we
Oh,
want
we're
to ski.
doing everything.
And we're not on the greens anymore.
No, we're on the blues. I sometimes think about going on the blacks, but I'm just somebody that
Send it.
likes to kind of
Full
chill
send.
out on the mountain. I feel like I might like cross country skiing a little bit better, but I've never
Okay.
tried it.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's different. Have you ever skied out west or traveled in the skiing realm at all? I know you mentioned previously that you skied at Blue Mountain a lot.
Yes, so Blue Mountain is my main go-to place. I do go up to Vermont. I try to go once a year. I was just there, I would say about a month or two ago, but I've never actually traveled out west for that specific reason. And I would love to. I actually just had a layover in Denver because I got back from California yesterday, and I'm like, wow, this is cold, but this would be great to go skiing.
100%. I love that. I love that. Once again, sponsors, affiliates, anyone listening, Ashley wants to go to Colorado. Just a little hint here.
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely incredible. And I think it's so awesome how you've been able to kind of work these three sports together and do all of them really. Because a lot of times I talk with people and they're doing one sport and they stick with that one sport, but eventually they just start to get tired of it or, they just need a break from it for a little while because they're kind of losing their spark. And I think you having the ability to kind of switch between one of three at any given moment is really unique. And I think that would probably keep your passion for all of them alive a lot better, as opposed to just, hey, I'm going all in on lacrosse and that's the only thing I'm ever going to do every day. Done. I don't know. It's nice to have a little bit of variety in there, I think.
Especially because I'm not going to have that forever after May. It is something that's going to be taken out of my life. So that is why I decided to pick up the skiing and the skydiving at a younger age. And then also putting myself into that, that hybrid athlete type of space. I just find that type of training so intriguing and I love it. I actually got my roommate who's also on the lacrosse team to sign up for Hyrox with me. So we're going to be doing that May 30th, New York City.
You also mentioned about lacrosse having an end date, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that you're not in full control of the end date in this situation. And I've talked about this with a number of athletes in the past, how, you control your destiny and so on that way, and how, they kind of like go out on their terms, so to speak, kind of like what it sounds like you did in high school lacrosse that way. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this time it's a little bit of different circumstances for your college lacrosse.
Yeah, so with where I live, we have the NJAC. That's our conference. I'm not sure how many, it's usually, we've had teams fluctuate out of the NJAC. I believe it's 6 teams, including us right now. That's going to change with, or could potentially change with our program, leaving the NJAC with only 5. So with the NJAC, same thing as other colleges. It's like a bracket. Then if you're at the top of the bracket, you'll go on to play other teams that are not in that conference. So depending on how we do, that controls our end date. We usually typically end, I would say, first to second week of May. Yeah, I'm not sure what time we're going to be ending this year, but as of right now, once we do end, after that, we will not be considered an NCAA sport as of this moment.
That's just wild to think about. So basically, after this season, the team is just done.
Yes, so that was the same thing that happened with the men's team. Back in December, I believe it was December 13th was when we had the meeting. We received an email the night before, the day before, stating that we had to be at this meeting on Friday the 13th. I had work, so I had to hop in via Zoom call. I'm lucky that that was an option, and I come on, and it's the athletic director, as well as just a few other names that I'm not really sure of who they were. I'm assuming they also worked with the AD of our university, basically telling us that the program was going to get cut along with the men's. So the men didn't know until after us, and our coaches didn't know until the same morning that we found out. So they found out right before us, and then our athletic advisor had found out right before them. So everybody was very blindsided with it, and this is all public knowledge too. Everything that I'm saying is, public, has been published in articles or has already been said by people, just because I don't ever want anything to come back at me. This is all public knowledge. So yeah, it was very heartbreaking because nobody knew what was going on. We're all very confused and left in this state of, what do we do? We were given very little information. There was a sheet of paper that basically stated why they were doing what they were doing. But it didn't really, again, give us that much information. They had claimed that it was a financial thing, but now that Montclair is merged with Bloomfield, I'm not sure how the financials work. I also don't know if our Title IXs are combined with Bloomfield, so that could have been another reason why they took us out, but it's confusing to me why they would then replace it with another sport, especially one that I feel would personally be a lot more money travel wise and things like that, considering there are so little teams in the US of women's flag football, which would require the team to travel farther, hence it being more money. So the whole thing is very confusing. There's a lot of loose ends to it, but we're doing all that we can personally. We have gone to, one of my captains was a representative, as well as one of the guys from the men's lacrosse team, and we had went to a board of directors meeting. It was a public thing, and they had allowed us to speak. So the two of them went up and spoke and asked any questions that we didn't necessarily have the answers to. And the president was there and he answered some of them, some of the questions that we had, but not to the extent that we had wanted. So we're still trying to fully figure out what's going on. They are meeting with us next week at some point. This is the president and I believe vice president that are going to be meeting with us. I'm not sure what they're going to be talking about. I mean, I hope it's good things. We don't know. Again, there's a lot of loose ends, things that we would like to know, but as of right now, as of this current state, on Tuesday, the 14th of January, we will no longer be considered an NCAA program after our season ends.
It's just so crazy to try and wrap my head around that. And I'd imagine you probably are missing closure and you just have so many questions and there's just so many things that are just unclear to you if I had to guess. And it's honestly a little bit weird to me on the outside looking in. Because, in prep for this, I was doing a little bit of reading and digging on Montclair State University, and I think there was an article in the Montclarian, and if this is incorrect, please someone correct me. I don't mind being called out, but there was a quote in there about, basically they were looking at the future and in response to growing trends in college sports. And by everything I've seen for the last several years, professional lacrosse and college lacrosse is growing and booming. I mean, it's a way of life for some of the kids that I work with. I mean, the WLL just started up. The Professional Lacrosse League is growing. Like, to me, it's just very, very weird to try and wrap my head around the concept of someone saying that lacrosse is not in the growing trend picture that way, because by all means, everything I've seen, it's growing faster than I thought was possible. I mean, I think it's probably got potential to be one of the next biggest sports in the country. I don't know. I've always really enjoyed watching lacrosse, especially since I moved down here to Maryland, and it's just weird.
I think they might have needed something to put in that article. I completely disagree with what they're saying, and I agree with everything you're saying about it being a growing sport. It was never, you know, it wasn't super popular at my high school, but now that it's getting more exposure and things like that, it is more of a popular sport now.
And how have you personally taken this concept of, hey, this is going to be my last year playing lacrosse? Like, I'd imagine this is a like all out kind of year, full send for you.
Yeah, so regardless, if this happened or not, it was going to be, not saying that I don't give everything, but with this being my last semester, I was going to take absolutely everything in and kind of just feel everything and be extremely present, especially because I'm very aware that this is kind of the last time I'm going to be doing everything. There's going to be a last practice, a last time I walk into the locker room, things like that. Last time I hear my name being called or I step onto the field. So because those are things that you just can't get after college. Obviously, lacrosse can still continue, but not in that form or capacity. So, but now with this happening with the school, it makes me we just want to do even more. And that goes for all of us too. We kind of just want to leave nothing behind, considering there is going to be nothing left if this does continue through. So we just want to leave it all out there and, have no regrets with anything that we do.
Fully understand that. And I mean, I think that's what it's all about at the end of the day is, you might not be able to control the terms of how the season, or in this case, how the program ends, but you can certainly choose how you respond to it and how you react to it and find a way to make the most of it that way. I've said this on a number of podcasts lately that unfortunately you cannot stop the waves that life throws at you, but you can learn how to surf them. And at the end of the day, I think that's probably, if I had to guess what you and your teammates are going to do this fall or this spring, is it's just time to kind of full send, give it all we got, and see how memorable and historic this season can be for you all, because I have a feeling this is something that you're going to remember for years and years and years.
I think too that, if this really is going to be our last season, I want other teams to kind of look at us and realize how grateful they are to not be in our position. Because you don't realize it until you're actually in it or it's gone. But I kind of want it to be an eye opener that, this could happen at any time. And I want everybody to kind of just go all out in their sport. And again, like leave nothing behind, hug your teammates, like thank your coaches, everything like that. And just be grateful for every moment that you're given. Because again, like it can be swiped away at any time. But I have been, very grateful for the time that I've had here. And it's all kind of just setting in now that this is gonna be it.
A lot to take in and a lot to kind of wrap your head around. But, by the sounds, not only do you have skydiving and skiing after college, but you also mentioned the high intensity interval work in Hyrox multiple times that way. And it's so, so funny because I feel like I just started hearing about Hyrox, over the summer-ish that way. And it's just been blowing up and exploding. And all of these athletes that, are wrapping up their collegiate careers, next thing I know, they're signing up for Hyrox competitions and they're getting like practically addicted to the sport that way. So by the sounds, you're going to be one of the next, big Hyrox athletes, if I had to guess.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
What got you into Hyrox competition or this style of training that way?
Living in this area of New Jersey, there's a gym called Alpha Fit Club. It's actually growing. We're expanding into, I think there's about 20 locations right now. They're opening up, I believe, like 3 or 4 more locations. They want to expand to different states. It's great. It's amazing. It's incredible. And it was one of the best things I could have done for myself. I decided to take a free class. One of my old teammates had worked there. She was like, come in for a class. So I took the class and I loved it. I immediately signed up and I've been going ever since. And I think that was my sophomore year of college. And I just found the style of training so interesting because it was so different. Previously, before that, I had never used a rower. I'd never used a ski machine. I'd never even used a self-propelled treadmill. I'd only used a regular treadmill that you can control the speed on and the elevation. So all that was so new to me and I loved it. And I don't think I could ever get tired of it, but I eventually started working at this gym. So now I work there. I'm not a coach right now, but it could be a possibility. So right now I just work at the front desk. The community is amazing. The community of people is so great. I look forward to seeing them all the time because I'm usually working the same shifts. So you just get to know those people on a different level. And I'm very lucky that type of training there are races for, which is really cool, hence the Hyrox. I had been waiting so long for the New York to open up, and it did a few weeks ago, and it's entirely sold out now. It's going to be 3 days long, May 30th, May 31st, and June 1st of 2025. So I would say that gym is what ultimately got me into this style of training and wanting to compete in Hyrox.
I absolutely love that. And it sounds like that, that kind of gym segue into this space is also helping to shape kind of the future for you that way. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you want to kind of take the whole concept of exercise and sports performance and sports rehabilitation and all of these different things and kind of make that your own career in the future that way.
Yeah, I'm very open to that. My original plan was to attend physical therapy school this upcoming May. I had sent in applications in the fall and spoken to a lot of people that were reputable that have been in the field for a long time, and they had suggested a gap year. And I'm not going to take it just because that's what they're saying, but obviously I'm asking them for a reason. So I ultimately decided to take the gap year, which will be this upcoming year, and see if that's still the route that I want to go. Going back to school is not for everyone. I'm sure, as you can understand, it's a lot of schooling, and knowing people that are in school right now, it is so time demanding and it can be mentally draining, but it would be a sacrifice that I'd be willing to take at that time. But I'm just trying to figure out if that's something that I would want to do. So I feel like I'll ultimately decide over the summer if I do want to go back to school and do that.
Definitely agree that it's a lot of additional schooling. There's a lot to unpack with that concept of going back to school and thinking about things. And there's just a lot to it. And it's like, you kind of committing 2 to 3 years of your life to kind of set you up for the rest of your career. So I definitely always recommend to people like test the waters a little bit, test it with one foot instead of two.
Yeah, absolutely. It had just been this thing in my head for so long, like you're going to go to physical therapy school, you're going to do this. And then you talk to people, and it kind of created a little bit of a pivot for me, which is, it might not be a bad thing. Yeah, right now we're kind of just figuring it all out.
And you know what? And that's perfectly okay. I think a lot of times people that I talk to feel like, oh my gosh, I need to have all the answers. I need to have everything planned out and so on that way. And in reality, I don't think that's the case. I don't meet many people that have it all together or have it all figured out, if I'm being completely honest, right? Like, I think it's perfectly okay to just kind of have this understanding that, plain and simple, it's a one day at a time kind of thing. And, not everyone has it all figured out, and that's okay. You're going to kind of figure it out as you go.
Right. And I'm somebody that does not like change. I don't like when things are out of my control. And I'm becoming okay with that now. I'm becoming okay with the fact that those things aren't going to be planned. They're not going to be set in my calendar, because my Google Calendar is crazy and probably nothing like you've ever seen before. But yeah, I'm becoming okay with it. And I think that's what's supposed to happen. And that this is just another part of my own personal growth as a human being.
Oh my goodness, yes. It's a never-ending evolution and a never-ending process. And it's incredible to just kind of like stop and think like I do this different times, just where I was 3 years ago, 5 years ago, and then I stop and think about where I'm at now. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank goodness we're no longer there. Like, we did that with my TikTok the other day. A couple patients of mine were scrolling through all the way back to like the original posts from like 5 years ago, and I was just cringing at some of the stuff I put out there. Like it was fine. It was like, all PG and all fine that way. I was just like, I had no idea how to do content creation, and there was like zero effort whatsoever. And I'm just like, thank goodness we're not in that space anymore. So, thank goodness for evolution and continuing to learn and continuing to just find ways to become better as people that way.
And it's funny you say that because that's actually, I have many jobs. I also am very involved with the social media department at my university. That is one of the jobs. So you will see my face on that TikTok. You will see my face on that Instagram. I have personally worked with the university president before. We did a YouTube video. We called it Hot One, HAWT, where it's like Hot Ones, but not. So it's kind of like a spin-off. And we did that. So that also raised a few concerns for me with the whole event going down with the school. It kind of put me in a difficult situation because I had worked with the university on a personal level. And I know he's not the only person that is making the decision to cut the program, but I had to, kind of give some grace when it came to that because he is still a human being. And I did work with him on a personal level. I did get to know him. So I am in and out of that situation a little bit. I can't involve myself too much because I don't know what's going to happen with my future in the university. I could totally end up working for the university, doing social media stuff. I don't know. So,
I certainly think that you're someone who has got such a wide array of experience and you've done so many different things and you've got so many incredible sports journeys and stories and experiences, including that, skydiving story that we're not going to tell your parents or anything that way. We'll leave that out. And it's just incredible to see how all of that kind of comes together. And, realistically, the sky is the limit for what you can do and where you're going to go in the future that way. And I cannot wait to see where you end up, across this next several months and years and just kind of where your journey takes you. And I know that someone listening is also going to want to keep up to date with all the incredible things that you're doing, Ashley. So for people who want to find out more about you, where can they find you at online?
my Instagram is my full first and last name. So it's ASHLEYPETROSINE. And the same thing for my TikTok. I don't know what's going on with TikTok. So that, right. We don't know.
We,
We
we
don't
we have
know.
no idea, but I can tell you right now, if TikTok is banned, it might as well just be the cause for the apocalypse because none of the people I work with, the athletes anyways, they're not going to know what to do without TikTok. Like the dances or cure for boredom, like they need TikTok. So hopefully TikTok gets left alone.
Yeah, I think I did see something where they're postponing it for 270 days, if I'm correct. I'm not even sure. I saw that probably a few minutes before I hopped on the call with you. So I didn't really even get to take a full look at it. But yeah, so my Instagram is the same as my TikTok. That's where you can find everything that I post about all that I do.
I love that. We'll link to that all in the description below. That way, if you did not quite catch that, you can just click there and check out everything Ashley is doing. I gotta ask, it's Ashley Petrosine.
Petrosini.
Petrosine. I should know this.
Yes, very close.
Almost. Petrosini. Awesome. Well, Ashley, it's been an incredible time talking all things skydiving and skiing and lacrosse and even Hyrox with you. I really appreciate your time and love all the stuff that you're doing.
Thank you. Yes, I look forward to working through this all and seeing where it all takes me.